What's your view on the minimum wage?
Well, I think no one should be working full time in this country and be poor. And if you look at the minimum wage right now, it would not give you a livable wage in many, many parts of the country. To me, the issue is that if you just raise the minimum wage, there are going to be some businesses on the margins that have a hard time bearing those costs or reduce hours or reduce shifts in employment. And so to me, the way we lift the minimum wage is through the freedom dividend of $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year, which essentially gives everyone a $6 an hour raise immediately as if you're working full time. And this, instead of coming out of small business owners, this actually helps small businesses because we all have more money to spend.
So your view is you would leave the minimum wage at $7.25 an hour? You think that's the right level at the federal level?
Well, if anything, I might want to tweak it up a little bit, but I'd much rather lay the foundation through a freedom dividend. No one should be working and be poor in this country.
So you created a bit of controversy, as you do sometimes, commenting on Shane Gillis, who was named as an SNL cast member, and then some of his very, objectionable, truly racist comments came out, which you objected to, but also said you didn't think that he should be fired. Just explain your thinking on that a little bit.
I first find out about it, and I'm personally included in some of his offensive remarks.
Yeah, he attacked you specifically.
And so the first thing I did was I thought, who the heck is this guy? And then went and found some of his comedy, and I watched some of it with my wife. And I went through this whole complex set of reactions, truly. But I concluded that I did not think he was an evil person. And that he was a still forming comedian that had made some terrible and offensive jokes, and to me that did not rise to a level where he should lose his job. What really, I think in this country we become excessively punitive and vindictive around statements that people find offensive. That should not be necessarily a fireable offense, particularly if you're in an entertainment industry, which is something of a gray area of this kind of expression. This is at least where I came down.
Yeah.
And because I was personally called out as one of the people that he called these epithets, I said, look, I should express my point of view. I thought it could be a teaching moment and be positive if we could make it that.
The New York Times ran a story which, cards on the table here, I thought was unfair, that basically quoted one person from the Asian American community saying that she was disappointed in your response. What have you found to be the response specifically from the Asian American community to the way that you handled this moment?
Well, we're a very diverse community,
of course.
And I would be shocked if everyone in the community agreed with the way I responded. I mean, that's what a community is all about, is that some people would say, look, you should have come down very, very hard. Some agree. That's what I'd expect. And the biggest thing I hope for is that people, whether they agree or disagree with me, they see where I'm coming from and that I'm coming at it from at least a good place.
Yeah, I think the place you come at it is different than what at least some corners of the left, the way that they approach these things. Talk a little bit more about sort of just your view of cancel culture. What would be what is a fireable offense in the Andrew Yang world vision?
Well, when I looked at Shane's work, he did not strike me as malignant or evil or as someone who truly was advocating for racist or hateful ideologies. To me, if you're advocating for those things, then that's way over the line, and you should lose your job for that sort of advocacy.
Yeah.
I think that cancel culture has really become sort of the source of fear for many Americans, where we live in a culture that you're somehow afraid that if you say the wrong thing that your life could be changed forever. And one thing a friend of mine said that was interesting, he said that like everyone becomes angry at this individual and they lose jobs or lose opportunities and have their lives changed, and then we move on. But then their life is still, like that person's life has still been, in some cases, irrevocably altered, even as the rest of us have moved on.
Right.
And so to me, it's vital that we humanize each other. We humanize the consequences of some of these impulses, not just in terms of who hears the expression, but who is losing a livelihood as a result.
Do you think that conversation is relevant at all around Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh?
I think it is. I personally think that Brett Kavanaugh should not have been confirmed. I think if you have a job interview for the highest office in the land and you have very clear character concerns about an individual, then no one's entitled to be a Supreme Court justice.
Right.
But I do think, though, that we have different standards in different aspects of American life. I do think Supreme Court justice and entertainer are very, very different things.
Very different. I think that's a very fair point. What does an Andrew Yang administration look like? How do you choose who will staff your cabinet? How do you govern in a way that's different from what we've had in the past?
Well, I am an outsider to Washington, as I think everyone knows. And in order to get things done here in Washington, I would need a partner or a set of teammates that have more relationships in Washington, D.C., that know who to call when we want to get certain things done. I think we need a combination of outsiders and insiders in the Yang administration to be maximally effective. And so that's the kind of team I would build. And I think one of the things that people appreciate about me is that I'm not tied to ideology, that as long as you share the vision and have the goals in mind and want to be part of the team, then we can work together.
Yeah, I think that is part of what people find appealing about you. I think you've been a really big advocate for rural America, not just in your presidential campaign, but also through your work at Venture for America, which is where you and I first met. Would you consider devolving any of the administration from D.C. out to other parts of the country?
I 100% would. We have to get some of the agencies out of D.C. to other parts of the country in a very significant way. And just on a practical standpoint, D.C. is very expensive. D.C. has a lot of traffic. If you're going to employ thousands of people in an agency, D.C. might not be the place you would want those employees to be. Meanwhile, the same group of workers in a place like Ohio or Michigan would be a massive pillar of that community. The other function is that it would bring the government closer to the people. Because D.C. is a bubble, D.C. is disconnected from the day-to-day experience of a lot of Americans. And so if you had government agencies that were in other parts of the country, then the government would literally be closer to the people and have a better sense of our experience.
Okay, I just have 2 more questions for you. Quick, easy ones, I think.
Great.
So President Obama always releases his summer playlist and his summer reading list. We're right at the end of summer, but when you're driving around Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, wherever you are, what's on the radio?
Well, this is a plug, Krystal, but we actually released our Spotify playlist of what we have going on in the car. It's a lot of 80s.
That. I'm glad I asked.
But
what's the number one for you, though?
I'm a big 80s fan, so I like the Smiths and the Cure. Boy George just tweeted something nice about me. I was a big Culture Club guy.
That's awesome.
But we're about to release a second playlist, and so we're just going to keep the hits going.
When is it going to drop?
It's going to drop in the next couple of weeks.
And how about summer reading lists? I'm sure you've been very busy. I don't know how much time you have had personally to read, but what's on the Andrew Yang must-read list other than my book, which you already very helpfully plugged? Thank you for that.
Yes. People pass me books to read on the trail, and I want to read them all. I love to read, but my time right now is sort of scarce.
Sure.
And so the books I read now are books that are relevant to boning up on policies. So I read a climate change book in preparation for the town hall the other week. And right now, I have a foreign policy book in my bookshelf. I love synthesizing information. I enjoy it. I wish I had more time to read.
Yeah. All right. This is truly the last question. What is Andrew Yang's version of the American dream? How do you tell the story of the American dream?
Well, to me, the American dream is very simple, that we think our kids should have better lives than we had, that we're constantly evolving. And unfortunately, that dream is dying by the numbers, where if you were born in the 1940s in the United States, there was a 93% chance you were going to be better off than your parents in terms of socioeconomic mobility and earnings. In the 1990s, if you were born in America, that's down to 50-50 shot, and it's heading in the absolute wrong direction. So the American dream is, can we look our children in the face and say, you're going to have it better than we had? And if we can't say that, then we're doing something very, very wrong.
Andrew Yang, thank you. Great to see you.
Great seeing you too, Krystal.
Make sure to watch the complete interview with Andrew Yang tomorrow on Hill TV. Also, make sure to subscribe, check the bell. You can catch us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook Live at Hill TV Live.